Welcome to Media Decoded, a channel dedicated to exposing the lies of the mainstream media and is the enemy of big business, deep state politicians in both parties, the Hollywood elite, and China. I hope that you like, comment, share, and subscribe because it is by far the best thing you can do to support this channel, and I do need your help. YouTube will never help me get my message out. Instead, they will try to stifle it. So without further ado, I welcome you to Media Decoded. Before we get into the meat of our story this morning, let's take a look at some brilliant CNN reporting that hit the airwaves this morning.
We are learning more about just how easily the coronavirus and other viruses could possibly spread through the air. This is important. This is important. This is important. CNN senior medical correspondent Elizabeth Cohen with the latest. We learn so much about this virus every week, every month of the outbreak. What does this latest study show us, and how concerning is it?
So, Jim, this latest study was on the flu, and it might have some indications about coronavirus, but let's talk about the flu for a minute. So in a lab, they looked to see, could this virus spread on a particle of dust? So is that possible? Yes. Does it change anything? Not really. Could this be true of coronavirus? Could it spread on dust? It's possible. Again, not going to change anything.
This is important. This is important. This is important.
Very clear.
This is important.
These people are an absolute joke. An absolute joke. All right, let's get on to the meat of today's story.
Very good Tuesday morning to you. I'm Jim Sciutto.
And I'm Poppy Harlow. We are on top of two battles this morning: the nation's fight against this pandemic and the fight for the future of the country.
There you go. Two battles, each with a clear bad guy and good guy. On one hand, you have COVID versus America. And on the other hand, I guess you're saying it's America versus Trump. I mean, this is clearly the way you're framing it. And we all know who you're dying to see get elected. It isn't a secret at this point.
First, former First Lady, I should say, Michelle Obama. If you didn't hear her last night, she unleashed a fierce takedown of the president and his policies on the first night of the Democratic National Convention. Watch this.
Let me be as honest and clear as I possibly can. Donald Trump is the wrong president for our country. He has had more than enough time to prove that he can do the job, but he is clearly in over his head. He cannot meet this moment. He simply cannot be who we need him to be for us. It is what it is.
Wow, this is a takedown of his policy? She didn't mention a single policy. And remember, this is the Michelle Obama that when she got into the White House, she had this big initiative. She was going to make everyone healthy and tout how we should all eat healthy and eat less sugar. And she was going to do this huge, big initiative. And then when the sugar cereals found out about this, they came to her and gave her millions of dollars and told her, change that message. And so what she does then, plug their products as healthy and then turn her initiative into one that says, be active, everyone be active. What a joke. She's part of the problem, not part of the solution. Let's break this down completely. First, let me start out by saying that liberals used to be against big business. But big business figured out that they had to buy politicians to win them over, and they successfully did that. And then to win the public over, all they had to do was tout progressive themes like Black Lives Matter and we hate Donald Trump. And then the citizens became on their side. It's like the old saying, the best trick the devil ever pulled is making you believe he doesn't exist. So the biggest enemy of the people is clearly big business, huge corporations, and the power and control they have over our government. I think we can all agree on that. And in the 80s, we had a thing start called lobbying. And that's when these big, powerful corporations started to be able to legally go up to politicians and pay them basically to get what they need, right? So whether it's a tax break, et cetera, or changing some policy in their favor. So that began in the 80s, and mostly it was with the Republican Party. So at this time, big business had penetrated and infiltrated the Republican Party lock, stock, and barrel, and they were known as the party for the rich. At the same time, back then, the Democrats were known as the party of the middle class, right? The blue-collar party. And that was the way it was for a little while until big business realized that why the heck are we only getting one party here? We can buy the other party too, and it didn't take them long. By the year 2000, they had pretty much infiltrated both parties completely and wholly. And if there's any doubt about it taking over the Democratic Party, all you need to do is take a look at the last 4 or 5 prominent Democratic politicians and how they're worth hundreds of millions of dollars and where that money came from and the amount of money that was spent on their campaigns. It's record-setting almost in every case, from Hillary to Obama, etc. It is record-setting the amount of money they took from huge corporations. So here they are. They've locked up both political parties, creating an enemy there for you. So in other words, not only now are the big businesses like Monsanto, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, Facebook, Google, Amazon, Nike. Not only are all these huge businesses your enemy and work against the people where all they care about is profit, bottom line, and pay their bottom line workers nothing. So not only are they your enemy, but now they have both political parties your enemy too, because they're not acting in your favor. They're acting in the favor of these big businesses. This is what leads to Amazon paying zero in taxes off $1 trillion, and you pay 40% on your $60,000. Okay? So we have this now as the paradigm, and then enter Trump. Here comes a populist outsider with his own agenda, effectively splitting the Republican Party. Now, many of the deep staters, all of the deep staters that originally wanted him out. No one wanted him there. And it was only because he beat them so badly that they had to basically kowtow to him and just to save their political career. But deep inside, they didn't want him there. And you can see on the other side of the aisle, they did the same thing to Bernie, the Democrats, but Bernie didn't have that landslide victory, so they were able to keep him at bay twice in 2 elections. They did this pretty dirty to him twice. So both parties tried to get splintered. Only the Republican Party was successful in splintering with populist views. So we have the enemies, big business. We have the enemies, the deep staters in both parties. And the media is controlled by big business and by these political parties. Basically, there's 6 media companies. They control everything you see and read, okay? Just one of those media companies does not get a gigantic portion of its revenue from China. All the others do. Okay, so ask yourself, are these huge media conglomerates my friend, or are they working against me, right? So you have these 5 giant media companies, and they're not interested in telling you the truth at all. What they're interested in is getting you to vote so that they stay in power, big business stays in power, and both of the deep state politicians on both sides stay in power. And lastly, we've got Hollywood. We've got the virtue signalers from Hollywood telling you how to live your life. Meanwhile, they live in a bubble, and any decision they make has no effect on them. It has an effect on you. And they're not, and I consider them the enemy of the people. So let's lay out our enemies. We've got big business. We've got the deep staters in both parties. We've got the media. We've got China. And we've got Hollywood. These institutions are controlling the future of our country. They will control the future of our country regardless of who is the president. It's just a matter of how much. And in the future, we're in danger of them controlling everything until our liberties are lost. So they are the enemies. Ask yourself this. Who do they want as president? Every single one of those institutions, who do they want as president? They want Biden. So if you want Biden, you are on the side of huge corporations like Amazon, Facebook, Google, etc. You're on Nike. You're on their side, lock, stock, and barrel. You're absolutely on the side of our media, 5 or 6 stations, drilling it down our throat in nearly every single thing we read and hear. You're absolutely on the side of the deep state politicians that have been in office for 40 plus years while income inequality has grown like crazy. You are absolutely on the side of Hollywood, all of these rich, pretentious people that live in a bubble and preach to you every day. You're on their side. And lastly, China. You're on China's side because China wants Biden. China loves globalization. China loves big business, loves all of these companies that have to come to China and open up sweatshops. Okay? So I just say this, you could rail against Trump. You could hate on Trump. You can do everything you want. But at the end of the day, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Well, that's all we got for today. Remember, like, share, and subscribe, and check out our other videos. Thank you so much for joining me.